Right, in this short demonstration, I'd like to do two things. Firstly, I'm very briefly going to talk about Google Classroom. And Google Classroom is really a learning management system that is very much scaled down, bare bones learning management system. But I'd like to introduce that very briefly. And secondly, I'd like to talk about how to organize files in order to share with students. Okay, so basically, firstly, let me start with Google Classroom. You'll notice that instead of going to Google Drive, I've come to classroom.google.com. The University of Hong Kong has currently got a pilot program going, and if you wish to create an account at Google Classroom, please let me know and I'll send you some information about how to do that. So when we arrive at Google Classroom, you'll notice that it's just got a block here for each of the classes that I'm currently running. And at the top, it's always got something here that says classes. This lets me link up directly to all of the classes that I'm using Google Classroom with, as well as a place where I could immediately see assignments, and it would show me my calendar, which would have events like assignments being due, and the classes pages. The classes page is where I'm currently at. If you take a look at one of the classes, basically it's, again, as I said, it's a very scaled down version of a learning management system like Moodle. The only real functionality that it has here is the ability to create an announcement, which is basically the teacher pushing a message to all of the students, to create an assignment, which is some place where students can upload some work that they've done. Now, the neat thing about assignments is that if I've got a task that would be completed within a Google Doc or within a Google spreadsheet, I can link that document to this assignment, and Google will automatically create a folder for each of the students where they can have their own copy of the document. And as each student gets their own copy of the document, that folder would then be shared just with me, the teacher, and the student. So any work that the student does in that document up until the deadline, I can continue to see. Here you can create a question, which is basically something like creating a discussion forum. And you can reuse a post. So basically, if I've written something in one class, I don't need to rewrite it if I'm going to use it for another class. So that's basically all of the features that Google Classroom offers. The students area is where I get a list of all of my students. I'm not going to go there today just because then I would have to gray it out to protect their identity, but it's just a list of students. And finally over here in the About column, the important thing here is that I've got a link directly to my Google Drive. Okay, so let's take a look at Google Drive, and I'd like to shift gears now and talk about the issue of how can we organize folders so that when we're using Google Drive, we've got things neat and tidy. Okay, now I'm going to click on this folder, and you can see it will take me immediately to my Google Drive. The Google Classroom has automatically created a folder called Classroom, and within that folder, it automatically creates a folder for each of my classes. Right now we're looking at a 9920 class, and when we look at this 9920 class, what you can see is that basically here I've got two main folders that I want to talk about today. One folder is for my deck teams, and my deck teams are groups of students who are writing together. I create one folder for each group, and then I share that folder with all of the group members. And that means that as the students are composing their work, as they're writing, whether they're writing in class or whether they're writing out of class, each of the students has access to the work being done by other students in their group. That means that they're not sharing with the entire class, but they're just sharing within their own little writing group. And that means that they can give feedback to each other at any point. And it also means that as the writing progresses, all of the other students in their group will be quite familiar with the progression of that particular document because they look at each other's work all the time. So they have access to each other's work as the work is being composed. And these deck team folders for me I think are quite an important element for creating a more collaborative working environment. Okay, so you've got deck team folders, and deck team folders or team folders are shared with the individual teams, but not with the entire class. Now keep in mind that I can also come in and I can see any of the work as it progresses. Okay, so you can see right now I've got a document for each of the students in this group, and I can pop in and I can look and see their progress at any point. I can also see what kinds of comments they're leaving for each other. Okay, so this folder is shared in this group. There are 4 students, and it's just shared with those 4. Now another folder that I think is quite important is the class shared folder. The class shared folder is shared with the entire class. I use this for every session, and so effectively what happens is that at the beginning of each session, students know that they can click on the class shared folder and they can go and see what's going on in class today. Okay, so here you can see that in this class we were reviewing progress on their paper, and there was a task here about what they were meant to do. You can also see that there's a place here for each of the groups to write something that they've been working on. So in this case, the groups were working on a very short summary of one person's paper in their group, and they were trying to present the kind of logical cohesion in that paper. And each group was able to post and to share with the entire class. In the next task, they were working on posting up a paragraph, and you can see that each group had to put forward a paragraph to share with the class. As each group put forward their paragraph, we were then able to share that paragraph with the entire class. So you can see that this is a way that we can share work among the whole class quite quickly and easily, and then discuss it in class. Okay, so you've got 2 main areas. One is the group shared folders, which is shared just within a writing group, and you've also got class shared folders. Now keep in mind, one of the other advantages to having class shared folders is that if I've got other documents that I might be working on that day, I can just drop those documents directly into that folder. So you can see on this day we were looking at Bloom's taxonomy, so I've got a copy of that in the document, and we were also looking at the assessment criteria and questions, and so I've got that PDF there in the folder. Instead of doing any kind of handout, I can just drop files directly in the folder, and once I've dropped a file in that folder, it's automatically shared with the students. Everything is organized by session, so if at any point in time I want to go back and say, remember what we did in session 2, I can just click and say, here we are, this is what we did in session 2. And we've got a record of what happened in different sessions. So that's effectively how I've managed my folders. Obviously, you need to think about how you want to manage your own folders to run your class, but the key thing that I'd ask you to keep in mind is that whatever shared settings you have for one folder will be replicated for all of the subfolders. Now this is a really important concept to keep in mind. So you can't have, for example, a class shared folder that's shared with the entire class and then insert group shared folders into that class shared folder, because anything in the class shared folder will be shared with the entire class. Okay, so any subfolders will inherit the attributes from their the parent folder. So you've got to keep that in mind as you begin to lay things out. Hopefully this makes sense. If you've got any questions, please feel free to drop me an email and I'll get back to you. Thanks.